Welcome back to the Sensible Mama podcast. I am Paulina Westcott, your host. Before we get started, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you get the notifications on, and please share the show. If you have some pregnant mamas in your life or people that are planning on having kids in the near future, send them the show and, help me spread the word. Today, my guest is Bethany. She is a lactation consultant, and she's going to share with us her birth stories and whatever else we go off on as far as this is concerned. So let's just jump right into it. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. Yeah, so it's funny. I actually had a girl reach out to me a couple days ago, maybe it was yesterday, and we were talking about VBACs. And I've had a couple guests on the show that have talked about their experience with VBACs, but that is the extent of my experience. I definitely am very interested to hear your story. So let's just dive right in.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be able to share this with you because I know that, VBACs can be scary for certain people, or, you hear like different things where, maybe your provider is not suggesting it. And I think it's nice for people to realize that actually, if you do the research, VBACs are actually safer than having a second C-section or a third C-section or whatever. As we trust our bodies know what to do. If you wait the allotted time that your provider suggests, you can have a beautiful, amazing birth afterwards. I have 4 children. Just as an interesting fact, my first was unmedicated. I had her vaginally, and I was hoping to have that for all of my children. So for my second baby, I had planned it the whole time. I had the same doula that I had the first time around, and I was planning for another unmedicated birth. And at about, I want to say it was like 36 weeks, they said, your daughter's breech and you have no choice but to have a C-section. And I was devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I had always planned to have an unmedicated birth, and I was really shocked at that point. So, I did end up having a beautiful baby girl. And if I had had a different provider and if they had allowed a vaginal birth with a breech baby, I probably could have pushed her out. She was only 6 pounds. She was a teeny tiny little girl. But providers, especially in the United States, are very scared to deliver breech babies. And there's, I think, only one provider here in Connecticut who's willing to deliver a breech baby, and you have to start with them. So, like, if I had been with them the whole time, then he would have delivered me. But you can't.
It's a very strange thing. I've heard the same thing, that here in Connecticut there's only that one, and I can't remember which hospital he's in, but I'm like,
yeah, he's at UConn.
It's crazy. Yeah. So if you're not giving birth at UConn and you happen to have a breech baby, like,
yeah.
crazy.
So it was really, that was like devastating for me. And I chose to deliver at the same community hospital in Bristol that I had my first daughter at, because it was a little bit more laid back than those crazy, hospitals that have like 300 births, a year, or like 450 births a year. Like, that's insane. So anyways, I had her. And then with my other children, I knew immediately I was planning to have a VBAC. I was like, nope, I'm going to do it. As long as my babies are not breech, I'm having a VBAC. I don't care what anybody says. And so it was very important to me to use the same doula, because she was a woman that, like, I had connected with significantly through my first and my second birth. And she had made sure that, all of my goals were met. She was great at explaining things. So, like, doulas in general, like, I have so much love and like appreciation for doulas, because what they do is unbelievable. Making sure to support people, making sure that they advocate, they help their patients like really know what's happening. And without her, there's no way I really don't think I could have had a VBAC. So I really, appreciate. Her name was Denise. I think she's with Birthing Baby Gently. And I love her to death. My kids call her fairy godmother.
I love it so much.
Yeah, they helped her out. So,
Really
so getting into like the VBAC story. So, with my third daughter, it was about 2 years after my C-section. And I, again, was planning an unmedicated birth. I had spoken with my providers ahead of time, and I had said, hey guys, like, I definitely want a VBAC. And they tried, like, I heard some scary stuff that was like, oh, well, if you go over, we can't induce you. So if
Yes.
you have, if you are overdue, you're going to have another C-section. And I refused. I said, absolutely not. That's not something I'm going to do. I'm going to allow my body to say when my baby's ready to come, and I'm not being induced. And, the whole thing. So I was a little bit scared in the beginning. And then one of my providers was like, no, we could induce you. I don't know why somebody said we couldn't. Because I tend to have longer gestation than most people. My kiddos come
Sure.
around 40, around 41 weeks. But luckily she's like, nope, we're going to let you do your thing. And so, with my third girl, I went into labor, and, I called my doula, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm in labor. And she came over, we hung out for a little while. We tried to spend as much time at home as possible, relaxing. We actually went to a pool, which was like around the corner from my house, which was crazy. She knew some random person that lived near my house. Yep. And so I walked around, I hung out in the pool. And then as my contractions were coming a little bit closer, I said, you know what, I think it's time that we go to the hospital. So that was really good to have her there. Then my husband joined us at the hospital. And so even though some people say, well, I have a husband, why do I need a doula? And it's a completely different situation. You know what I mean? Having that doula there to make sure that, like, okay, this is what you had stated that you wanted done, versus, like, a husband, as much as, or a partner, a birthing person that's going to be there with you, as much as they want to help, they want a healthy baby and they don't want you in pain. So it's really difficult.
I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up, because so I just finished the book, The Birth Partner. I have it back here.
Yep, I read it.
And it's interesting because you can have the same information as the husband. Like, my husband was amazing in both of my births. He was absolutely incredible. But a doula does something different. Now, I didn't have a doula with my second for reasons, but with my first, I accidentally did. And what she did for me, I mean, I can't say for sure, but I truly believe that had I been in a hospital and I had hit the point where I was like, I quit, I give up.
Yeah.
Had somebody come to me and been like, here's a C-section on a platter, I would have been like, yoink, thank you very much, let's do it.
Right.
And my husband probably, because he knows that I've researched everything, I'm very like, let's really understand what's going on here. He probably would have been like, oh, okay, if she's accepting it, that must mean she knows what she's doing. But labor brain is something else, man. It's not,
absolutely,
it's not normal.
Yeah.
And so having a doula at my house, she was like, you are gonna get through this, and here's what we need to do. And she gave me the most amazing pep talk, and I was like, all right. And I like rallied, and I said, all right, let's do this. And I had a beautiful home birth. And I obviously, at home, you can't.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
But my husband, as amazing as he was in that first birth, he would not have known what to say or how to deliver it in such a way that a laboring mama, me, would have been able to accept it, understand it, and really take action,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I remember seeing his face while I was laboring with her, and he was just like, so like, he had such that face of like concern for me, right? Like, oh my gosh, my lovely wife is in so much pain, and he just wanted to take care of that for me. You know what I mean? So yeah, so it was nice to have the doula there to be like, okay, I know you know things, but this is Bethany's goal. This is, and suggesting random things like, hey, try this or try that, or just getting me out of my mind.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, so I went to the hospital, and I was, full in labor, and things were progressing. And, at that point at the community hospital, they only have, I think, one or two rooms with bathtubs in them. So you cannot deliver in a bathtub at this hospital, which I understood. That was my choice by choosing this hospital. But I had fully intended to labor in the tub because I am a water person. And so I remember getting there and my doula filled up the tub immediately. And, I got in, I labored for a while. My labor slowed a little while, which, in the hot water, your body naturally kind of slows down because it's like a natural epidural almost. It lets you
Mhm.
breathe and come to like basically bring you down to calm you down to allow you to like enjoy the process.
And
Um,
sometimes you even get a little nap in, even if it's for a couple of minutes, but you can get a little
Absolutely.
nap.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And so I remember I had gotten out at one point and I had labored, on the birthing ball and I had just done, a bunch of different stuff. And I said, I think I was like almost 9 centimeters with her. And I said, I need to get back in the water. And so my doula started running the water again in the tub because she had drained it. And so the nurse had come running in and she goes, oh, no. You're way too far along. You can't be in the tub. And I said, wait a second. The rule here in this hospital, and I knew because I had done all the research, is if you are intact, if your water hasn't broke, you can go into the pool, into the tub. And I said, I'm still intact. My water hasn't broken. I'm going in the tub. I don't care what you say. And I think there was even a point where like she was like, oh, well, the telemetry like situation isn't going well, like it's not charged right. And I said, well, then I guess I'm going in without monitoring because I'm going in the tub, like I am going in the tub. And so she like went running out and she talked to the doctor and the doctor's like, yeah, she's telling you the truth, like that is our rule, that if they are intact they can go in the tub. And she's like, I'm sorry, I've never had somebody this far along in labor like going back into the tub. And within that like 20 minutes, as I was dilating to the full 10 centimeters, I did take a nap, like you said. I closed my eyes. I was like sleeping in between contractions. And all of a sudden, I felt this huge tightness. And then I heard pop. And I go, oh my God, I think my water just broke. And they were like, oh my God, get out of the tub, get out of the tub, because that was like their rule there. So my body started pushing my daughter out. So as I'm like getting out of the tub, as I'm walking to the bed, literally I could feel her coming down without, the fetal, what is it? The fetal ejection reflex, like your body automatically pushes the baby out when it's time to come out. And I almost delivered her standing up, but the doctor really wanted me to lay down. So I did. I laid down. And she immediately, within like 2 pushes, came right out and they put that nice, beautiful, juicy baby on me. And I will say that experience was, I think it made me feel so powerful because I was like, I can do this. I did this. I rocked this. It was an unbelievable feeling that I will never forget.
Love this story with all my heart, like from beginning to end. That's like, there's so much fear mongering about the subject of birth, and women are led to believe that it's this medical event that they can't do without a doctor closely supervising every moment of it, and you have to be told what to do. And if you don't follow instructions, then you're not going to have a healthy baby. And like, of course, there are times when you need to listen to the doctor. I'm not saying that you don't. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
of course there are times, but as a whole, like as a general statement, birth is such a powerful, beautiful, magical experience, and your story just embodies that completely, and I love it.
Yeah, like I said, I felt like the strongest woman alive after delivering her. And, there was that, one of the things that's really amazing that people don't realize is that if you have an unmedicated birth, not only was this a VBAC, right? But like an unmedicated birth, you have this amazing jolt of endorphins that takes over your whole body as soon as your baby comes out. There's no more pain, there's no more anything. It's just, oh, here's your gorgeous baby. I felt like I could have run a marathon. I felt amazing. Yeah.
It's so wild.
Yep.
Do
Yeah.
you,
And
do you remember how
great.
long was that labor start to finish?
It was funny. I was looking at her birth certificate the other day. And I think that it was because I think I started feeling contractions around like 5 o'clock. 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I
No,
ended up delivering her at 8:30. So it was only 4.5 hours, which is insane. You know, even my fourth baby, which was my second VBAC, his birth was like a good 12 hours.
wow.
Can you stop moving? Sorry. My son joined us to listen to my birth. He's like, he jumped up here and he's like, you know, listening, but he's shaking.
It comes with the territory of motherhood. It's all right.
Yeah. But even with him, like, you know, my second VBAC, his birth, I didn't listen to my doula. I was ready to push, and I was only 9.5 centimeters. And they were like, oh, if you start pushing, he should come right out. He's your fourth baby. Like, you know, and I didn't listen to my doula, even though she suggested to go on all fours. And I was like, no, I'm not feeling well. I'm not feeling well. And 3 hours later, I had a nurse that came in for a shift change, and she goes, why don't you just get on all fours? Just try it out. And as soon as I got on all fours, my water broke and out came Sebastian. And I was like, oh, well, I should have listened 3 hours ago. He would have come right out. But even then, you know, it's so funny. Like, you know, no matter how many children I have, going through every birth, like with Cecilia, I was like, what if I can't do this? So even though I had a vaginal birth with my first and an unmedicated vaginal birth with my first, still with my VBAC, I was like, what if my body can't do this? What if I can't do this? And I just kept pushing those like feelings away and pushing them out of my head and like, nope, I'm going to do this. Everything is going to be fine. And even with my fourth baby, I still was like, I don't know. This is taking so long. I don't know why this is taking so long. Maybe my body's decided that it doesn't want to do it, you know, but no, you have to trust, you have to believe, you have to breathe through everything, you know, and know eventually it will happen.
It's true. I mean, let's talk about that for a second, because like there's so much talk these days about the word anxiety, right? Like, and sometimes it's a legitimate thing, and other times I think people ascribe that title to something that is not that, where having concerns and wondering about your ability to birth is normal. Like, I would be lying if I said that I went into both of my births being like, this is going to be a piece of cake.
Yeah.
and I did hype myself up. I did do the education that I thought I looking back, I would have done more with my first, but
yeah.
I did get myself as prepared as I could, and I believed in myself, obviously enough that I decided to have a home birth with my first kid. Like, that requires a certain level of confidence, right?
Heck yeah.
But even so, I remember I was like in the thick of it, and I was like,
was this a good idea?
Maybe this was a mistake.
Yeah.
And again, labor brain is a thing, and hormones do hormone things in your body when you're in labor, and you just have to work through it, and everybody's gonna have a different way of dealing with it, I guess. Like, for some people it's just education. For me, the thing that helped me the most was watching endless amounts of natural like vaginal birth vlogs.
Yeah.
Just watching other moms do it gave me confidence. I'm like, I'm not the best human on the planet, but I'm certainly not the least competent. And I figure if enough women in this world have done it, and I have the evidence, I have the video proof that they could do this, it somehow validated my belief in myself. Now, maybe that doesn't work for everybody. Maybe other people need other things. They need scientific papers and statistics and numbers. And if that's the kind of person you are, then absolutely that's what you should do. But like, to feel those feelings and wonder if you're capable of coping and you know, call it anxiety or nervousness, it's all normal. Like, I don't know if I'm not an actress, but I imagine an actress going up on stage to perform gets nervous. And
what if I forget my lines? What if I do this or that? Yeah.
Right. I'm like, when you're running a marathon, I'm sure that people that are like athletes, professional athletes going out on a you know, on a major game, I'm sure there is nervousness and anxiety, if you want to call it that. But like, somebody said a quote, and I'm gonna botch it, but like, bravery and courage isn't a lack of fear. It's doing something in spite of having fear, or something to that effect. And I was like, with birth, it's the same thing. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to wonder if you're capable of it. You know, like your doula will probably believe in you more than you do, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually, so kind of just to piggyback on that, like, there's kind of a couple of things that I tell my clients when I see them, so I have my own private practice for lactation. And when I see people, which I didn't start doing until after I breastfed my last child. But some of the things that I tell people, there's two main things, right? The first thing is, I believe that there was a study where they went to New Guinea and they were checking the lactation, times and norms of an scheduled timed breastfeeding experience, right? And what was really interesting about what they found is that even women, right, in New Guinea, they have no choice but to breastfeed, right? There's no formula. They can't just oh, I've decided I'm done with this, right? They have to breastfeed. They have no other choice, right? And they still have the concern, oh my gosh, what if I don't have enough milk for my baby? That's still that's insane, right? We are all the same, right? We have those same concerns. And like you were saying, it's not necessarily anxiety. It's just one of those things that naturally occurring in ourselves. Can we do this? Is this something that is that we can do? As we see our beautiful baby in our arms, right? We're like, how could I possibly be able to keep this child alive, right? It's unbelievable.
Goodness, I have 2 kids. You have 4. Is there ever a day that goes by where you're like, what am I doing? I'm in charge of these little people. What?
I'm still looking for the adultier adult in my life to help out. But yeah, and the other thing is that, one of the things that people say, and I really love the fact that you looked up the vlogs and that really helped you through your birthing process, because, one of the things I say as well is that in our society, we don't see birth. We don't see lactation. We don't see these things. And so when people say, well, isn't breastfeeding supposed to be natural? Okay, yes, right? But if you've never seen it in your life, how could you know, right? In our society, we're not seeing your aunties, your grandmas, your cousins, your sisters, your friends, a random person on the street. You're not seeing those people breastfeed up in your face, right? So you don't know. You've never seen how to hold a baby correctly. You've never seen how to do a trick if you're having pain, certain things like that. Whereas if we were in a society where you saw those things all the time, right? Where we had a more matriarchal society where you had women helping other women birthing, which I think is what doulas are all about, right? You would know how to breastfeed. It would just be kind of oh yeah, I've seen somebody throw a baby on, I can do this.
It's so interesting. As you're saying that, the thought just suddenly struck me. So I have never, I don't know, so, after I gave birth to my first kid, all sense of I don't know if it's body shame or whatever, it just went out the window. I was naked in front of my parents.
Right.
And the stranger came in and I was like, haha, I'm having a baby, I'm naked. And then ever after that was 3.5 years ago, ever after that, I was like, I'm feeding my baby, and if somebody is offended by that, that's a them problem, not a me problem. But as you were just talking, I was like, not only do we not see the breastfeeding out in public and everybody normalizing, it shouldn't have to be normalized, but we have this thing where we all have these little special covers that we put over our babies. So even if somebody is breastfeeding out in public, they're draped. You don't see it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm like, I've never been that type. I was at an event once, a lot of people, it was a grand opening of a thing, and I was sitting there and I was like, I don't know, my baby wanted food, and I was like, I have a boob, let's do this thing, right? So and I'm respectful. I went to a back corner where I'm not in the main flow of people for the baby and for the people around, whatever. So I'm sitting out in some little enclosed, because it was raining a little bit, under a little tent. I asked somebody if they don't, I'm like, anybody offended by this? No? Okay, good, I'm gonna breastfeed my baby. And somebody came up to me, they're like, here, and they handed me a sweater. She took the sweater off. And now, okay, so this person doesn't have kids and is not at all around babies, so whatever. Again, I was like, my boob's out, I don't know. It's whatever. He handed me the sweater. I literally, it didn't even occur to me why. I was like, thanks. And I put the sweater over my baby like a little blanket because I thought she thought he was cold.
Yeah. There's a really funny spoof about breastfeeding, and it's from Australia, And it's like, the joke is like, boobs are scary, like, be worried. Like, it's a really funny, like, funny music video that they have. They actually have music videos about breastfeeding, which is hilarious. So one day you will have to check them out. But
Absolutely.
but one of the ones that I'm thinking of, when you're like talking about this woman bringing you her sweater, that was so thoughtful of her, but she probably didn't realize, like, I am totally comfortable feeding my baby. I appreciate your concern. You know what I mean?
And it was after she like kind of walked away, I was like, oh, I understand what she was doing. But I don't know. The way I look at breastfeeding is I'm like, if some guy was like standing, I don't know, at a store and pulled out a protein bar or something out of his pocket and started munching on it, I'd be like, dude's hungry. Okay. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when my kid is like, I would like a snack, I'm like, here's your protein bar. Like,
Yeah.
to me, it's the same level of, offensiveness.
It's really funny. So I was just in Egypt for my 40th birthday. I just got back. I was an amazing trip, a once in a lifetime thing. But when I was there, I didn't see anybody eating and walking around. Like, you know how you go to a market and, like, for us, we have street food, right? Like, we grab a gyro from here, or maybe we grab like a hot dog from there, but we walk around and we chow and we eat and whatever. I don't remember seeing anybody except for us eating, like walking around in public.
That's so weird.
Isn't that super? I was just thinking about that because I was like, I wonder if in other cultures it's not just about feeding other babies, but I never, like, we went on ferries, we went and I never saw a single person eating that wasn't sitting down at a table, like in a restaurant.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So maybe for them also, like, eating randomly walking around is like sloppy, like you're getting your spit everywhere. I don't know. I don't know.
Could be,
I'm
yeah, I don't know.
I'm trying to come up with these, these thoughts and processes, but
No, man. Well, we went off on the subject of breastfeeding, but I did have a question for you on the subject of VBAC. Did you want to share your second story before we get into like too deep
yeah,
dive?
so my second VBAC with my son Sebastian, I was, I again, same doula, and I knew what I was doing, and I knew this was going to happen. And for some reason, I even opted to have, like, my membrane swept. And I was like, you know what? I'll try it. Why not? Because all my babies come late. We'll just see how things go. And I remember going into labor and nobody believed I was in labor. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm in labor. They're like, yeah, I don't know, Bethany. Like, we don't know if you're really, dude, I'm in labor. So I ended up laboring for a little while in the house, and then they're like, oh yeah, you really are in labor. Um, and so I ended up going into the hospital, and my husband took over a lot of the things that my doula had done previously. So he saw her right on our third birth, right? He had seen, like, different things. We used a rebozo with, my son as we were laboring. So, using like the rebozo is like a long cloth where, when I was having contractions, I would actually pull on it, as he was holding it for me. And it gave me, like, that strength to, like, allow the contractions to come and go. And I remember, again, like, they were super weirded out about me going into the tub, like, and I was like, nope, I know the rules, I know my deal, like, I know everything. And again, I went in the water with him, and I had some really nice naps with him. And then my contractions were so on top of each other, and I'm like, I need to push him out. And I
Mm.
said, you know what? Why don't you check me? Because I don't know why I'm not. Why? First of all, my waters don't break until my babies come out, so the water hadn't broken yet. But yeah, but again, like I had said earlier, I was 9.5 centimeters dilated, and she's like, well, it's just a lip. I think you could push through. This is your fourth baby. I think you could just push him, right past that lip. And I tried pushing once, and she's like, you're not pushing. I'm like, well, obviously my baby is not ready to come. Um, and the use of and I wore all of my own clothes through the entire thing. So I didn't use a hospital gown while I was birthing. I used, like, one of my, like, nursing dresses that I would normally wear, which was so comfortable for me. And again, I think I said already, like, they were complaining about, like, the telectomy. I can't even say that word. The telemetry, like it wasn't working because they were like, oh no, we can't monitor the baby. And I'm like, well, if you can't monitor the baby, I'm sorry, but I'm not laying in bed. Like, that's not how you deliver a baby unmedicated. You don't just lay in bed and have a baby. No, I need to move around. And then, so finally my doula had said to me, she goes, Bethany, why don't you get on all fours? And I was so uncomfortable because the contractions were so strong. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, he's stuck at 9.5 centimeters. I'm not going to finish progressing. This is not going to happen, right? You have those self-doubts in your head. And she said it to me again, and I'm like, nope, I can't do it. And she's like, just for a second, just go on all fours. I'm like, nope, I can't do it. So I did the ball again. I did a few other things, and 3 hours later, like I said, a nurse came in as a new shift. She's like, hey, I know, you've been at 9.5 for a while. Why don't you just get on all fours? And I was like, nope, I can't do it. I'm not in the mood. I'm not comfortable. And she's like, I think you really could. I had used the bed where I was sitting in like the throne position. So, she's like, just get on all fours, put your knees down here, put your arms up there, and just see how you feel. She's like, if you absolutely hate it, within a few seconds, we'll turn you around, no issues at all. So I'm like, okay, all right, fine, I'll try it. I'll try anything. And I got on all fours, and all of a sudden my water broke all over the nurse. Like, I'm talking soaked her. Her sneakers, her outfit, my water broke all over her. And then all of a sudden he started coming out. And I was like, oh, well, he's coming now. So yeah. So I pushed his head out, and they had told me to stop. The nuchal cord was around his neck twice. So that could have been the other reason why he was having trouble finishing to descend. You know what I mean? And so as the doctor saw the double nuchal cord around his neck, she went running across the room to grab the scissors. And the nurse, who I had soaked with my amniotic fluid all over her, right? She actually looped it off his head. Yes, while the doctor was looking for the scissors. So she comes back and she's like, what happened? What happened? And she's like, oh, I just, I looped it over his neck, over his head. He's totally fine. And she was like, yep. And the doctor was livid. She was like, why would you do that? How could you do that? But it was so slippery, and it was so fine that it came off super easy. You know what I mean?
Yes. It happens.
So, yeah, it happens. You know what I mean? And the people get so scared when they hear, oh, the cord was around his neck, that's why he needed a C-section, or that it's not the case. It's a jelly-filled thing, right? It's very it's not stretchy, but it's like squeezy, and it doesn't necessarily get so tight that it would be like a danger, right?
It's designed. I mean, your baby, if anybody's ever been pregnant with a baby who's even marginally active, you feel them kicking and moving and whatever. It's designed for a baby who is doing those,
Absolutely.
disco parties in your belly. It's designed to be able to withstand that. Like the body wouldn't make something that would kill the baby.
Exactly. So
under normal circumstances, I should caveat.
I agree. Under normal circumstances, nope, I completely agree. But so then I finished pushing him out, and I stayed in all fours, and he stayed underneath me until his cord was, finishing to fully pulse. I think it ended up taking 15 or 20 minutes for the cord to finish pulsing. So he got all of his blood back, and then they cut the cord. But what was really interesting, he was blue. He was like a blueberry baby for like a week after birth. I think just be sitting in the, in the birth canal for such a long time, because he was ready to be born, but I was not in a good position. And, I think one of the things that totally helped was being unmedicated, because if I had had an epidural, it would have been so much harder for them to get me on all fours or to move me around to get him in a good position to come out. And I don't know this for sure, but I could have ended up with another C-section, I think.
Right.
And even the nurse, when she had told me to get on all fours and I just moved myself, she's like, oh my gosh, I forgot how easy it is when you're not medicated to move your body, right?
Man, what a comment. Because like I was talking to another doula, and we were discussing how rare it is for OBGYNs in hospitals to see a fully natural physiological birth. There's with the amount of interventions that are used at every turn, it's so rare for them to see a totally
Yes.
unencumbered, uninterrupted, fully physiological birth start to finish. There are times when interventions are certainly needed, but I think you would agree they are highly, highly overused. The fact that the doctor
Yes.
ran for scissors
I know.
before even trying to loop it, all it says, like, that's the training, that's the mindset. It's intervene at the first, I was going to say red flag, but that's not even a red flag, at the first sign
Like a
of a
yellow
possibility
flag.
of,
Yeah.
barely. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And yeah, no, I completely agree. And it was just kind of like, I think also one of the things that I totally advocated for myself. So, with both of my third and my fourth birth, the VBACs, I did not want any fluids. I didn't want Pitocin. I didn't want anything even to help my uterus shrink back down to size postpartum. And so they said to me, well, okay, we're not going to hook you up, but the thing that they made me do was to get an IV. So I did get a port, and they said, just in case something bad happens, we have you already hooked up. And I was like, okay, fine. So that's the one thing that I did allow them to do. But with my third and my fourth births, neither one did I get any extra fluid, because I knew, what can happen with breastfeeding and swelling and all these other things. And also with my fourth birth, she said, oh, well, it's your fourth baby, you have a higher risk of hemorrhage. And I said, well, you know what? First of all, if I hemorrhage, 100% you can give me Pitocin at that point, right? Like, I'm totally down for that. However, I have birthed my other children and I've had normal blood loss with the other 3 children. I have no reason to think that all of a sudden with this fourth birth that I'm going to be having extra bleeding. And not only that, but I knew that I was going to be exclusively breastfeeding. So I had breastfed
Mm-hmm.
my other kids, knowing that when you breastfeed a baby, it raises, right, that oxytocin level, which helps your uterus shrink back down to size. So I knew that, like, I naturally was going to be producing the oxytocin that my body needed to clamp down my uterus. And luckily my doctors listened to me. You know what I mean? I feel like if they hadn't been so open and listening to me, and me telling them why I didn't want certain things, I have a feeling they would have, pushed more on me. But again, I was educated, like you said, right? You watched the vlogs while you were birthing at home, and you researched and you did your stuff, and you said, well, this is why I don't want it. And they listened to me and they said, you know what, Bethany, you're right, we're on board for this. You know what I mean? So it was really
It's
good.
amazing. I mean, like, I hope that any mama listening to this episode is kind of gonna have the takeaway that you're the boss.
100%.
You're the boss. And as a boss, like, I've worked in corporate, settings before. I've worked in I've been the boss, and I've had bosses, and the boss should know what he or she is doing, like, so yes, you should be educated, and you should know what the risks are, and you should know what your options are. Like, you knew the rules of the hospital apparently better than the staff at the hospital.
Right, exactly.
These are a good quality to have in a boss. When the boss knows more than everybody else around them, they're likely to be a really good boss. So, like, if you are going into birth, and that's not to say that bosses don't get nervous and don't get, the jitters before going up to make a big decision or whatever, but, like, have the confidence in yourself and be willing for other people to experience that. Like, I do know what I'm doing, and you can listen to me when I say no. And it took me some time. I was not naturally born a confident person. Quite the opposite, in fact. I used to always second guess myself, and I never thought, I mean, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing it right? Is somebody else better? What's the word? Imposter syndrome was like my middle name. To this day, I battle with it. But, like, who am I to have a podcast about birth? But there is something to be said for you keep learning, and you are willing to make mistakes, and you're willing to change your mind, but go into it with confidence and know what you're doing, and do the research that you need to, and do whatever you need to do to get yourself to a point where you're not your own worst enemy. Like, it's a really big undertaking. Having a baby is a massive point in your life. Like you become a mother. That is not a small deal. You know what I mean? So you have
Right.
to go in, like, you got to have some oomph behind you. Like, I can do this. I got
Yes.
this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's I love, so after, my whole birthing situation and, my lactation situation, that's why I wanted to go into the birthing world. And so, yes, I don't deal with necessarily birthing, but I have been at births, working in many different hospitals over the years. I've seen births, I've helped with births. And it's just such an amazing process to hear the natural birthing sounds and to hear. I get chills sometimes when I go into the hospital and I hear a mom like pushing her baby, and I'm like, yes, like it's just such, it like brings me to tears almost to be like, yes, how powerful you are. That's so amazing that you're doing this. And I try my best, when I do work in the hospital, to especially go up to those moms who are like, oh my God, I ended up having to have an unmedicated birth. It was horrible. And I'm like, no, no, no. I tell them all the good reasons why. Okay, yes, you had expected to have an epidural. Yes, your birth went faster than it did. And I explain to them what are the benefits of having an unmedicated birth, right? Like why, all those things. And they're like, oh, I didn't realize that it was actually a good thing what happened. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Like, it's wild to me that, I don't know, I guess there's just different kinds of people in today's culture where, like, I guess I keep saying this, so people who listen to all my other episodes, sorry, I keep saying the same thing, but like, the people that seem to go into the world of birth work, be it a midwife, be it a doula, or a lactation consultant, or, there's so many different sort of avenues here, but it's all around the same sort of topic. All of us seem to have something in common, and it doesn't seem to be the norm, which, I take for granted my opinions and my viewpoints, and I just kind of assume that everybody must think this way. Like, I generally tend not to take medications. This whole Tylenol thing came out. I was like trying to think, I'm like, I should do some hot take about this whole recent Tylenol fiasco. And I was like, my take is so boring. It's so boring. My take is, don't take Tylenol. I took it once in my life and it didn't work. I've
Yeah.
never taken it since. Just don't take it. I don't know, like, that's the end of my opinion on the topic. And I'm like, that's so uninteresting. I don't know. Is it even worth saying? Just don't take medications, don't take drugs. Work with your body, understand what's happening. If you have a headache, find the root cause. If you have a chronic condition, find the root cause. If you need to change your diet, if you need to change, like, I'm like, figure out what's happening with your hormones. Like, there's so many things going on with the body. All it takes is some research, some understanding, or finding somebody who understands. And the same thing goes for birth. And I just kind of took for granted that, like, this just must be the normal viewpoint. This just must be how people think. Evidently, it's not. And I think that is not an insult to individual people, but more a commentary on our society and how reliant we have become on whatever, call it big medicine. I don't know if you want to get conspiratorial about it.
Yeah.
But there are incentive structures in place that keep you sick, that keep you not in control of your own health. And the same thing goes for birth. I have behind me the Business of Being Born DVD. Like, there is an industry of birth, and it's up to us as individuals to say, no, this is my experience, and I'm going to be running the show, not some corporation or somebody who gets kickbacks from how many shots of Pitocin are, delivered at this hospital or whatever the case may be. Like,
Yeah.
you're the boss. It's your experience. You take charge. And so that's why I started this whole Sensible Mama thing, is because I'm like, I want you, mama, watching this video, I want you to feel like you're in control. I want you to have access to the knowledge, you to take full responsibility for your experience. Even if that means it goes exactly the opposite of how you planned, you still have the the knowledge, and you can take responsibility for, even if you end up in an emergency C-section, you at least have educated yourself and you know what you're getting yourself into, and you can advocate for yourself and you can say, no, I want this kind of anesthetic, not that kind of anesthetic. If it comes to that, you can still be in the driver's seat.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I did with, I know the whole conversation today is about VBACs, but even with with my C-section that I ended up having, I was very particular. I said, there's certain things I want, certain things I don't want. And luckily, because of how vocal I was with my providers, they had given me an epidural because I was in labor. So I went into labor to have my C-section because I did not want to be just having a C-section, because I knew that your body needs those hormones to make sure that everything is going well. So my provider let me go into labor on my own. I actually walked to the hospital because I lived across the street from the hospital. So I walked to the hospital while I was in labor with her. And when I got there, I was already 5 centimeters, and they're like, oh my God, do not push, do not do anything. We have to give you your C-section. Like, this is not okay. I know. So I walked to the OR because I didn't want to be in a wheelchair. She said, okay, that's fine. And the epidural didn't work. And the anesthesiologist was like, well, the epidural is not working, so we're going to have to put her under. We're going to have to put her under general. And my OB heard that, and she goes, absolutely not. This woman wanted a completely unmedicated birth. She's having a C-section because she has no other choice. We're not putting her under. And it happened that, yeah, I know. And it happened that, like, another anesthesiologist was coming in for like the change of shift. And he's like, because I guess the rule is like only one can go in the back. Only one anesthesiologist can go in the back once. I guess that was the rule. And so because there was a second one coming on, he went into my back. So as a second provider. And I had a spinal, and it worked beautifully, and I ended up having her. But I had my doula in the OR, which I had fought for. I had my husband in the OR, which I fought for. I did not have my arms strapped down. You know what I mean? Like, I got all the things that I wanted. And even like after I had my C-section, they usually give, I think like 2 or 3 bags of Pitocin, after you deliver your baby from a C-section. And I told her I didn't want any. And she's like, well, can we compromise with 1 bag of Pitocin because you are having a C-section? You have a higher risk of bleeding because of everything. And I said, all right, fine, 1 bag. And I remember the nurse coming in and saying like, oh, she comes up to me and she goes to hang something up. But I said, no. I spoke with my doctor. We agreed 1 bag of Pitocin. I'm not having a second one. And she goes, oh, well, this is procedure. And I said, well, then you go talk to the doctor because I'm going to rip it out of my arm. I told her only 1 bag. And the nurse she hooked it up and she went out to talk to my doctor, and the doctor came in and she unhooked it. And she's like, I'm sorry. She's just like, this is what we normally do. So she just assumed this is how it goes. Like, nope.
We just met, but I love you. You have such fire. I love this.
There's certain things when I know I want something a certain way, and when I have done the education and I have done, all of the research and I know what I'm talking about, there is no way that you're going to talk me out of it.
Man, I love, and the truth of the matter is not everyone is like that. And that's okay. That's all right. Like, there are strengths to different kinds of personalities and so forth. But I guess I would say that if you're not the kind of person that is willing to fight for something like that, hire a doula. Just hire a doula.
100% agree. Yeah.
Doula who will be the dogged, rabid if necessary.
Yes.
For the most part, in my experience, every doula I've met is a very gentle, kind-hearted soul who is also capable of biting when necessary in your defense.
Yes. Yeah, their doulas are unbelievable. When I started looking to figure out, which kind of birth work I wanted to go into, I had considered doula work for a long time, and I still, I've read the books and I've done the things. For me with kids, I ended up going through like a pretty hard divorce, and it just would not have worked out for me to become a doula, unfortunately. But I definitely love them so much. I love the doulas that do birth work. I love the ones that do postpartum work. Like, without them, we are nothing.
I love it. So we have another 10 minutes or so before we wrap up. I do want you to talk about your practice and maybe just say a word about why lactation consulting. Like, doesn't breastfeeding just come naturally and everybody just knows how to do it automatically?
Didn't we just talk about this? Yeah, so yes, I have my own private practice. Like we were saying, I'm Bethany Ruiz Salguero. I am one of the only, I think right now there might be two in the state of Connecticut, bilingual lactation consultants. So I speak Spanish. I have an understanding in many other languages, so I also can help out if necessary. I have some Portuguese clients, and some clients that speak Italian. So I love languages, but the thing is with lactation, the reason why you need it, right? People are always like, I don't even know why I need to do this. After I leave, usually somebody's like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better about talking about this. Yes, maybe I had a tiny little problem and I learned so much during our sessions. And so with my private practice, most of the time I do all home visits. I accept most insurances. And I work all over the state of Connecticut. Down far into like Stanford area, I started to kind of pull back a little bit because it is a little bit far since I'm in central Connecticut. I one morning the other day, I went to a client's house and it took me 2 hours to get to her house, and I said, maybe I'm not going to go that far anymore. But but generally speaking, I'm all over the state of Connecticut. And on Wednesdays, I actually work at a chiropractor's office down in Hamden, Denny Chiropractic. And I, spend my day on Wednesday there. So that way, if she has any clients that she needs to be seen, or if somebody in that area would rather have an office visit, I can definitely do that. But I find that I love what's so amazing about home visits is that you're actually seeing them in their environment. You're
Mm-hmm.
seeing what kind of pillows do you have? Where do you nurse them mostly? How can we, learn how to breastfeed your baby successfully in your own bed, right? Because we could get things perfectly in the hospital. We could get things perfectly in an office. But once you go home, things are completely different. And so that's why I really like to see people in their own homes, seeing the dog barking and the husband working, in the corner. So it's just an amazing situation. And also when you go to the home, sometimes you have all of this extended family there. So you've got the mom, the mother-in-law, the auntie, the cousin who stopped by, right? And they're absorbing and they're listening to everything versus like, in an office setting where you have like just the mom or maybe just the dad comes, just one support person. Whereas I find that you can educate everybody. I love so much seeing, oh, I have an older child or an older cousin who doesn't have any kids yet, right? They can listen to these things and say, oh, breastfeeding is important. You know what I mean? Why does it matter? And learning, I'm really big on, the evidence-based research, the scientific side of breastfeeding, and how the body does it more effectively. So I definitely give those little, like, I said about New Guinea, and, I talk about studies randomly, but I try to make them come alive so that you can actually absorb the information and make sure that it's timely so that you're not like, oh my God, is this lady going to stop talking?
I love it. I love it. I mean, yeah, so I with my second, breastfeeding was a breeze. It was like painless, which I honestly thought was a lie. People are like, breastfeeding shouldn't hurt. And I'm like, yeah, except for the first like 3 months, right? With my first, my issue was, so I did have access to a lactation consultant. She also happened to be that doula that gave me that pep talk at my birth. However, I didn't know that there was a problem. I thought it was totally normal that every time my baby latched on, it hurt like bloody murder. And I was like, I guess it's just the first month or two I have to live through this. So even when my midwife at like my 6-week and my, my 2-week and my 6-week appointments, she's like, how's breastfeeding going? I was like, good.
Right.
Because I thought it was just how it was supposed to be. Like, he was chonky and he was gaining weight. He was, whatever, but he would like make this weird clicking sound, which I was like, I don't know, I guess that's also normal. And it hurt, so much. And I was like, it's going fine. And she was like, okay, good. So then she moved on because
of course
it was fine,
Right.
And then somebody I was talking to, I think I went to go see my pediatrician some months later, and I was like, it was a couple months in, and she's like, it hurts? And I'm like, yes. Doesn't it always? She's like, no, no, we can fix this. And I'm like, we can? This is a thing? And so I didn't even know. So I like to have, lactation consultants kind of talk about the topic, because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And if you're suffering
Absolutely.
and you're breastfeeding, there may be something that can be done about it.
Yes, there absolutely can. You know what I mean? Whether it's, maybe an oral tether situation, or maybe they're just not functioning correctly, or maybe even you're having the baby with their stomach up where they're supposed to be turned in. You know what I mean? It could be something very subtle that needs to be fixed, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Or it could be something a little bit more in depth. And so that's why it's important to definitely reach out to a lactation consultant, even if things are going okay. People find it funny that I'll work with people that have had 3, 4 babies, and they're like, well, I mean, I breastfed the other ones, and I go see them, and they're like, wow, I didn't realize I didn't know that much about breastfeeding. I thought that I knew so much.
But the other thing is, every baby is different. Like with my first,
Every
he was
baby is different.
he was angled kind of funky when I was pushing him out, which I think is what led to, there's something called torticollis, where the head
Yes.
just has a harder time turning one way than it does the other.
Yep.
So not that, and it wasn't severe. It wasn't like his head was like stuck
Right.
or anything. It was just, it was harder for him to turn one way.
Yes.
And so I would nurse on one boob and it was fine, but then the other one he would struggle with.
Mhm.
And my pediatrician was like, why don't you take him to a chiropractor? And so
Heck
I
yeah,
did.
that's why those body workers are so important.
And after like 2 visits with the chiro, it was a totally different story. Like
I believe
night
it.
and
Yep.
day. So
Yep, I
it's
believe it.
and it's always going to be something different. Like every baby is different. Every birth is different. Like maybe you're going to have no issues and it's going to be a walk in the park. Yay, awesome. But if
Yeah.
it's not, it's not that you're doing something wrong. It's that maybe there's something you just haven't learned yet.
Yeah, and like that's the main reason why I went into lactation, is because, with having 4 children, I had 4 very different experiences. You know what I
Mm,
mean? My first 2, I didn't breastfeed for as long as I wanted to, because I didn't know why you should. My third, I breastfed her till she was almost 3, and I tandem nursed her and my 4th child. So like it's a very my experiences were very, very different. And unfortunately, I didn't have a lactation consultant to help me out. I saw one, but I couldn't afford it. I had Husky, right? Which does not cover lactation services, which is the Medicaid, and I didn't have the help. So one of the reasons, yes, I have my own private practice, like I said, Lechería Lactation, but I also work for WIC in a few of their offices, because the families who have WIC, who have Husky, right, who have Medicaid, who need the help, I can see them in the office through WIC. So that's why I still continue to work for WIC, because, not everybody has insurance that can cover it. And I understand, being a mom that couldn't afford it myself, I want to be able to be there for the families that really, truly need it.
I love that. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. We covered so much more than I thought we were going to. It was amazing.
So much.
Good. It was so good. Yeah, so definitely, if you're in the Connecticut area, go and find Bethany if you need any assistance, anything to do with breastfeeding. She's your gal. I'm going to put all of her information in the description so you can find her website and her social media and all that. You can track her down and get her help, because look at her. She's amazing. She's on fire. She's gonna You're awesome. I love this. This was such an amazing conversation. Do you have any final closing words? Anything you want to say?
No, I had so much fun talking with you. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about my VBAC stories. I know that's one of my favorite topics to talk about. People don't know that it's something that can be such a powerful experience.
I love that. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. I'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.